Alright, hello and welcome to this video. So in this video, I'll be introducing you to CSS. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet and is a way to control the way your website looks while building your website. While the HTML covers just simply describing the elements, HTML just describes the element like there's a list here, there's an image here, there's a video here. You need CSS to now describe what those elements actually look like. That list, what color is it, how, like the width, the height, etc., etc. You need CSS for that. So it reads from top to bottom, and I'm going to explain right now. First of all, I need to show you how to actually add CSS to your HTML document. So first of all, I'm just going to add a header. If I can remember how to spell, okay, that should be right. So let's look at what it looks like in the browser. Good. So right now there's no CSS here, it's just HTML. So there are three ways to add CSS. One, there's inline, there's internal, and there's external. So inline CSS, the element itself, you add a property called style. So for instance, let me write color red. You have noticed the color has changed to red. So there's inline, internal, and there's external. That is inline. Internal, in the head, we're going to add the style tag. And here, if I say the body, I'm going to explain this in a while. I just want to show you how to add it. The body, background color, blue. The background color has changed to blue. This second one is internal. You place a style tag inside the head tag. This way you can just write your CSS there. This is better than the inline method, but it still has its flaws because this way it's not looking very neat. If you're working on a large website, this can get your code can get messy. Your CSS can be over 50 lines. Then the code itself could be like 100, 200, 300 lines. It will get very messy. So the best practice is to have an external CSS. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a folder, call it styles. Inside styles, main.css. So now I've created an external CSS file. I'm now going to link this HTML document to the CSS. And how do we do that? To do that, we simply create a link tag. You specify rel as style sheet. I'll explain that later. But it basically just says it's a style sheet you're linking up. Then you have to find where you placed it on your website. So we already know how to navigate paths. I'm going to navigate to the styles main.css. And now I've linked it. It won't show anything right now because I've not written anything there. But if I come here and say body, background color green, color white. So the text is now white and the background is green in color. So you've basically been wondering what I've been typing like this. So this is what the CSS syntax looks like, and I'm going to break it down right now. So CSS, when you're writing the syntax, first you have a selector. Then after a selector, you have declaration. And simply, when you say declaration, let me put this here. The declaration is going to be in curly brackets. This is a selector and a declaration. And your declaration is simply going to be property value. So now let me break down what each of these means. Selector is how you pick which element. Like you notice I kept typing body, etc. I'll show you how to pick your H2 and others. But selector is basically how you select the elements. Then declaration is your property and value. You're now saying you want this property to have this value. So with that in mind, I'm going to comment this out. I'll select this, control /. There are three major ways you can select elements. One is by specifying just the element itself. So H2, curly brackets. Then declaration, I want the color to be blue. So now this color, the H2's color is blue, as you can see there. So this looks nice and all, but this has a problem. Let me show you. If I create another H2, and say some random stuff, automatically that H2 is blue too. And that is fine if you want all your H2s to be blue. But if you don't want all your H2s to be blue, then we can't use this selector for that. It will change what you do not want to change. So how we can work on that, like I said, there are three major ways to select objects. One is by stating the element itself. The second one is with the class name. And the third one is with the ID. So what is a class name? What is an ID? So a class name is a way to group a collection of styles together. For example, I'm going to create and you do that with the class attribute. So now I'm going to give this a class name. I want to give this blue text. Make sure you don't give any spaces when writing your class names. And it's common practice to start with small letters, don't start with capital. And the class names is descriptive, so you understand what you're looking for. When you're working on a website, you might end up having up to 20, 30 classes. So in order not to be confused, it's best the class names are very descriptive. So once you see them, you know what they do. So I'm going to come here. When you're selecting with a class, you first put a point, then you put the class name, then curly brackets. So I'm going to say color red. So now only that element has the color red. But what if I want other elements to have red text? It's simple. I copy the class. Multiple elements can use the same class name. So I'm going to paste this here. So watch, I drop this in the first, second, the fourth, and the second H2. So to further explain classes and IDs, let's use humans for instance. So a class can be, for example, you have dark skin. Your CSS, no, you say someone is black. Your CSS, you now be like skin dark. Obviously, there's no skin property. I'm just using an instance. So if black, you can now say skin dark. But ID on the other hand, so multiple people, in this case elements, multiple elements can have this. Obviously, there's not only one black man in the whole world. And it's the same thing with elements. Multiple elements can have this description. Classes are basically just descriptions. So if you now say tall, and you now say height 5 feet, nothing is stopping you from also saying, okay, this is black and it's also tall. This one is black, but it's not tall. This one is tall, but it's not black, etc. So these are just descriptions. multiple elements can have multiple descriptions. So in your CSS, you define what black means, you define what tall means. Then you can have chubby. Blah, blah, blah. So multiple elements. So this one is black, tall. This one is black and chubby. This is just chubby. He's not black and he's not tall. So in your CSS, you define what you mean by each description. By chubby, this is what you mean. By tall, this is what you mean. By black, this is what you mean. You now come to your HTML and simply remember right now we're using classes. That's why there's a dot in front of it. So you now come and now state inside the classes, you just drop those descriptions. I've created black, tall, chubby. I just come here, drop whichever ones I want to have, whichever descriptions. So that is for classes. Now IDs, only one person can have an ID. So obviously, imagine you want to enter a plane. You can be black, you can be chubby, you can be white, you can be fair, whatever. But your ID, you're the only one who has that identification. That is what an ID is. An element can only have one ID, and two elements cannot have the same ID. An ID is used to define an element. So I'm going to say main h2. So now I've given this the ID of main h2. No other element should share that ID of h2, even though it could cause problems. So I'm going to come over here. While classes, we use points to start it. With IDs, we use hash. So I'm going to say hash main h2. So now anything I put in here will affect only the main h2. So let me just repeat once more. There are three major selectors. The first one is to call the element itself. So if you say h2, the issue with this is every single h2 on your site will be affected, and you may not want it to affect every h2. The second way is with classes. So now multiple elements can have this class. It's an easy way to have multiple elements share the same features. For example, if you have more than one picture that is meant to be 50 pixels by 50 pixels, you can have them share the same class that sets their height and their width to 50 pixels. So if you want only one element to have a feature, it's best to use ID, and you start an ID with hash. So now this will only affect that element. I'm going to put it into demo right now. I'm going to clean all of this. So I think the easiest way to describe this will be the H2s. I'm going to say I want font weight. I'll explain what these are later. Just for now, just focus. Okay, let me use color. That is easier for you to understand. Color blue. Then my H2, I'm going to say I want color red. Okay, let's change this to paragraph, sorry. Let's change the paragraph. Since we have a lot of paragraphs, let's change this to paragraph. So every paragraph on our page is going to be blue. But if you give it the class my P, it becomes red. If you give it my main P, it becomes gold. And the reason, remember earlier I stated that cascading style sheet Cascade means it's going from the top to the bottom. It reads it from the top to the bottom. So everything at the bottom is overwriting the top. So let's do this now. Let's see how this is going to look. So my main P and my P are going to be replacing the P tag default blue color, whoever has it. So if I save now, every single paragraph is going to be blue because we have not given any of them these other classes. So I'm going to say this, my main paragraph is going to be the first one. So this one, I'm going to give you the class of my P and this one class of. So there's only one main paragraph, but there are two my paragraphs. So I'm going to open it. So the first one is gold because that is, let me zoom in. So the first one is gold because that is our main paragraph as we set it here. We set the ID to my main paragraph. All the rest are blue, like this one, the second one, and the fourth one. They are still blue because we didn't give them any class names. So they are taking the default color for every paragraph. So they are taking the default for every paragraph. Then the third and the fifth, they are red because we gave them the class of my paragraph. So that's basically how it works. That is basically how classes work. That's basically how classes work. I recommend you go through this once more, maybe play it once or twice if you're a bit confused. But I'm just going to repeat one more time. CSS helps style your document. It's made for formatting the document, setting the color, setting the width, setting the height, setting the border. All those appearance features are what CSS does. So there are three ways to link CSS. One is inline by writing style and setting whatever you want to set inside here. The second way is by creating a style tag in your header and writing it there, but your code can get quite long. So I don't recommend the second one, and the first one is a no-go because to start putting the styling for every element inside them, it's not very appealing. So the best alternative is the third one, where you create an external file, and this file will strictly be for your styles. And there's one thing I forgot to mention. Your page does not need only one CSS. You can have multiple. For example, I can have a separate CSS just for users. I can have a separate CSS just for admin. I can have a separate CSS. This CSS will be keeping only my style and the stylings for the text. So you can have as many CSS files as you want. That is the benefit of using external CSS. And another benefit of external CSS, this page is using our main.css. You can also put it in another page. And just like that, this page is also using it. I can also go to our main HTML, and this page is also using it. So here I'm just going to create an anchor tag and say index.html. Okay, so go to the home page. You have noticed, okay, I didn't put any paragraph there. Let me put a paragraph in the home page. See, it's blue because it's also using the main.css. So that is the beauty of external CSS files. You can have multiple pages use the same CSS. You don't need to go and be creating the CSS over and over again. All right, thank you for sticking by to the end. If you feel this video helped you, please drop a like and feel free to subscribe for future content. I also have a website and a Discord where I'll be dropping most of my free content, so check that out. Also, feel free to support the channel on Ko-fi to aid the making of future assets and videos. Alright, that's all for now. See you in the next video.